Welcome to all our viewers in India and around the world. You're watching Defense Dynamics and I'm Danveer Singh coming to you from New Delhi. In Defense Dynamics today, we will talk about how India is restructuring its armed forces through Bhairavs. What are ramjet shells and how that makes Indian Army the world's first armed forces to use ramjet-powered artillery shells. And how Indian rocket punch gets an emergency boost of 300-kilometer rocket firepower with Suryastra strike. And as Europe and Israel look to India for industrial depth, in my take we'll explain why. But first, the global defense headlines.
India's Defence Minister Mr. Rajnath Singh commissioned the Indian Coast Guard ship Samudra Pratap in Goa on January 5th. Built by Goa's Shipyard Limited, it is India's first indigenously designed pollution control vessel and the largest in the Coast Guard fleet. Under the Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation Program, the Indian Coast Guard is hosting 24 international trainees from 6 friendly countries in Chennai for a search and rescue operation course. The course begins on January 5 and will conclude on January 10 of 2026. Lithuania has signed a €320 million contract with Saab for Bolide surface-to-air missiles. The missiles will equip country's RBS-70 short-range air defense systems. Germany's Bundeswehr has ordered an additional 30 mm ammunition for Puma infantry fighting vehicles from Rheinmetall. The deal, worth several €100 million, extends a framework contract signed in December 2022. Finland's border guard has ordered 3 hovercraft from the United Kingdom's Griffin Marine under EU-wide tender. The force selected the Griffin STD 2000 TD model. The contract value was not disclosed.
At a time when India is restructuring its armed forces to prepare for future wars, the Indian Army is quietly raising a new kind of fighting outfit, the Bhairavs. Bhairav in Sanskrit means the terrifying one or the fearsome, a fierce manifestation of Lord Shiva, representing the destroyer of evil, illusion and ego, and protector from fear. So what are these Indian Army's Bhairavs?
What are Bhairav Battalions? These are not traditional infantry units and they are not classic special forces either. Instead, they are designed for a battlefield where drones, speed, information dominance and rapid escalation control matters more than sheer numbers. They are called the Bhairav Battalions, a force created to fight modern hybrid wars along India's most sensitive frontiers. The Bhairav Battalions are newly raised, modernized combat units within the Indian Army, conceptualized as part of a wider restructuring of land forces. These battalions are built around the idea that future conflicts will be fast, technology-driven, and fought in fragmented battle spaces rather than along clearly defined front lines. Unlike conventional infantry battalions, Bhairav units are leaner, more agile, and digitally integrated. They are trained to operate in smaller combat teams, capable of independent decision-making, supported by real-time intelligence from drones, sensors, and networked command systems. The emphasis is on mobility, precision, and adaptability, not static defense. Importantly, these battalions are being tailored to specific terrains. For instance, a Bhairav battalion raised under the Southern Command has been optimized for desert warfare. Drawing on local manpower familiar with the terrain and climate, similar terrain-specific adaptations are expected in mountain and high-altitude sectors.
Indian Army already has a large component of infantry with specialized units like the Parachute Regiment and Special Forces Battalions. previously known as commandos. So anyone would ask, why are Bhairavs needed then? The answer lies in change dynamics of war with our neighboring adversaries.
Why are they needed? The need for Bhairav battalions stems from changing character of warfare. India today faces adversaries who operate below the threshold of full-scale war. Through patrol clashes, limited incursions, rapid force buildups, and grey zone tactics. Traditional infantry formations designed for prolonged and linear battles are often too slow and manpower heavy for such scenarios. At the same time, special forces units are too few and too strategic to be used for continuous frontline tasks. Their mandate is deep strikes, covert operations, and strategic missions, not day-to-day border dominance. Bhairav battalions fill this crucial operational gap. They provide commanders with a force that can react quickly, strike precisely, and hold tactically important ground without triggering large-scale mobilization. They strengthen deterrence by ensuring that India can respond swiftly and proportionately to any localized provocation. In effect, these battalions give Army more options on the escalation ladder between routine patrols and full conventional deployment.
A key point of clarity: Bhairav battalions are not special forces, they are not meant to replace them. So how are these different from the special forces?
How are they different from special forces? Special forces units are elite, highly specialized formations designed for covert, high-risk strategic missions such as deep penetration raids, sabotage, and cross-border operations. Their strength lies in secrecy, surprise, and limited but decisive use. Bhairav battalions, by contrast, are designed for open, sustained, and visible operations in contested areas. They are meant to dominate ground, deter adversaries, and respond rapidly to emerging threats. While they borrow certain capabilities such as drone integration, advanced surveillance, and flexible tactics, their role remains firmly within the tactical to sub-operational spectrum. In simple terms, special forces strike deep and disappear. Bhairav battalions deploy forward and stay.
This distinction allows the army to preserve special forces for critical missions, while Bhairav units handle the evolving realities of frontline modern warfare and become the Indian Army's first line of response.
How will they be deployed in future operations? Looking ahead, Bhairav battalions are expected to become the first line of response in future border contingencies. Whether it is a sudden intrusion, a rapid build-up across the line of actual control, or a limited tactical engagement, these units will be among the first to move. Their operational employment will include rapid reinforcement of threatened sectors, conducting limited offensive actions to regain tactical advantage, operating alongside drones, loitering munitions, and real-time intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance networks, acting as key ground elements within future theatre commands. By combining speed, technology, and terrain-specific expertise, Bhairav battalions enable the Indian Army to control space and time on the battlefield. They are designed to absorb shocks, impose cost on the adversary, and prevent local incidents from escalating into a wider conflict. In essence, they reflect a shift in Indian military thinking from reactive defense to persistent, forward-oriented deterrence.
The Bhairav battalions may not grab headlines like missiles or fighter jets, but they could prove decisive in how India fights and prevents the next war. Agile, modern, and forward deployed, they are built for conflicts India is most likely to face. In a landmark stride towards military self-reliance, India is on the cusp of rewriting global artillery doctrine. The Indian Army is set to become world's first armed force to operationally deploy Ramjet-Powered artillery shells for its 155mm guns, a breakthrough that could dramatically extend the reach and lethality of conventional artillery. Developed under India's Atmanirbhar Bharat push, This cutting-edge project brings together the Army and the IIT Madras, blending battlefield requirements with academic innovation.
What is the Ramjet artillery breakthrough? At its core, this innovation involves integrating ramjet propulsion into standard 155mm artillery shells. The result, a 30 to 50% increase in range without compromising on destructive power or accuracy. Conventional artillery shells rely solely on the initial force imparted by the gun barrel. Once fired, they gradually lose speed and energy. Ramjet-powered shells, however, are fundamentally different. After launch, as the shell accelerates to around Mach 2, the ramjet engine activates, drawing in air, compressing it naturally through forward motion and igniting fuel to generate sustained thrust. This allows the shell to fly farther, flatter and faster, dramatically extending gun's effective reach without turning it into a missile. Why this matters for modern warfare? Artillery modernization has been a long-standing priority for the Indian Army. While missiles offer long range and precision, they are expensive and limited in numbers. Conventional shells are cheaper and plentiful, but constrained by range. Ramjet-assisted artillery bridges this gap. With these shells, Indian artillery unit can strike deeper enemy positions, disrupt logistics, command nodes and reserves, fire from safer standoff distances, and reduce dependence on costly missile systems for medium-range targets. In practical terms, this means greater firepower without escalating cost, a decisive advantage in prolonged or high-intensity conflicts. How this technology is being developed? The project is being spearheaded by IIT Madras, working closely with Army's Technology Board. Crucially, the design philosophy is modular. Instead of creating entirely new ammunition, the ramjet module can be retrofitted into existing 155mm shells. Developmental trials are already underway, with successful firings conducted at the Pokhran field firing ranges in Rajasthan. These tests have validated stable ramjet ignition in flight, sustained propulsion after launch, and compatibility with existing artillery guns. This approach ensures rapid induction and avoids the logistical burden of replacing existing ammunition stockpiles. Which guns will benefit? One of the biggest advantages of this breakthrough is its platform-agnostic nature. Once perfected, ramjet-powered shells can be fired from virtually all of India's 155mm artillery systems, including the M777 ultra-light howitzer deployed in mountainous terrain. India's artillery inventory spans from light artillery, that is up to 105 mm for close support, medium artillery from 106 to 155 mm for suppression and bombardment, and heavy artillery above 155 mm for deep strikes. The ramjet shell sit in the medium artillery category, yet delivers performance approaching that of heavier, less mobile systems, allowing long-range strikes without sacrificing agility. What this means for India's future firepower? Operationally, ramjet-powered artillery shells will significantly enhance India's ability to conduct deep precision strikes, neutralize fortified positions, shape the battlefield before ground maneuvers, and maintain escalation control through conventional means. Strategically, this project underscores the success of India's military academic ecosystem. By partnering with IIT Madras, the Army is not just buying technology, it is co-creating it, strengthening India's domestic defense innovation base. Looking ahead, this breakthrough could pave the way for even more advanced concepts, including hybrid propulsion and next-generation assisted flight artillery systems.
Missiles may grab headlines, but artillery still decides the wars. With ramjet-powered shells, India is pushing guns into new era, witnessing combining range, power and affordability. If trials continue to succeed, this could become one of the most consequential artillery upgrades anywhere in the world. In a major boost to India's deep strike artillery capability, the Indian Army has signed a Rs 293 crore emergency procurement contract with Indian private defense manufacturer NIBE Limited in collaboration with Israel. The deal is for an advanced long-range universal rocket launcher system capable of precision strikes at 150 kilometers and 300 kilometers, dramatically expanding Army's operational reach.
What has been signed and why it matters? This contract, cleared under emergency procurement pass, covers the manufacturing and supply of made in India universal multi-calibre rocket systems along with ammunition, accessories and ground equipment. The value of Rs 292.69 crore sits just below the emergency procurement ceiling, enabling rapid induction without prolonged clearance cycles. This acquisition gives Indian Army immediate access to long-range precision strike capability at a time when artillery dominance is once again becoming decisive in modern warfare. Meet Suryastra, India's universal rocket launcher. The system being inducted is called Suryastra, India's first indigenous universal multi-calibre rocket launcher. What sets it apart is flexibility. A single launcher can fire rockets at 150 kilometers to 300 kilometers, engage multiple targets simultaneously, achieve high precision with trials demonstrating a circular error probability of under 5 meters, and launch loitering munition up to 100 kilometers, thus adding a surveillance cum strike dimension. In effect, Suryastra combines the role of classic rocket artillery, deep strike systems and drone-enabled warfare all on one platform. India-Israel collaboration and Atmanirbharta. This system is being built in India under a technology collaboration agreement signed in July of 2025 between NIBE Limited and Israeli defense major Elbit Systems. It marks the first time a high-precision rocket launcher with 300 km strike capability being produced domestically. The project reflects a mature phase of India-Israel defense cooperation, where India is no longer just an importer but a manufacturer and integrator of advanced strike systems. For New Delhi, this fits squarely into Atmanirbhar Bharat doctrine, that is Indian production involving private sector participation and trusted foreign technology partners. Why emergency procurement was used? On December 26 of 2025, the Defence Acquisition Council extended emergency procurement powers for the armed forces until January 15 of 2026. Under these provisions, systems up to 300 crore rupees can be bought urgently. Deliveries must begin within 6 months. Full induction must be completed within 1 year. This route allows the Army to plug critical capability gaps quickly, especially in context of evolving regional threats and lessons from ongoing global conflicts. Suryastra fits perfectly into this framework, fast to induct, immediately relevant, and operationally decisive. How this fits with India's rocket artillery roadmap? The induction of Suryastra complements rather than replaces India's indigenous rocket artillery programs. The DRDO has already confirmed that new variants of Pinaka system with range of 120 kilometers and 300 kilometers will enter production soon, with induction expected in 3 to 5 years. Together, these systems create a layered rocket strike architecture, immediate capability via emergency procurement, medium-term induction via DRDO-developed Pinaka variants, and long-term dominance through indigenous production and scale. The result the Indian Army gains the ability to strike deep, fast and precisely without relying solely on missiles or air power.
With Suryastra, the Indian Army is sending a clear message. Deep strike precision is no longer an exclusive domain of missiles and air power. Fast track, made in India and battle relevant, this emergency induction significantly reshapes India's artillery punch. What we are witnessing is not a sudden vote of confidence in India. It's a structural shift in how wars are fought and sustained. The wars in Ukraine and Middle East have shattered a long-held illusion in the West that precision weapons and small inventories are enough. Well, they are not. Modern wars are industrial wars of attrition where artillery shells, rockets, drones and interceptors are consumed in staggering numbers day after day. Europe simply does not have that industrial depth to sustain this tempo. Its defense industry was optimized for peace, not prolonged war. Israel, despite its technological brilliance, faces a different constraint: scale and geography. A small country fighting on multiple fronts cannot afford production bottlenecks of factories exposed to missile fire, and that is where India enters the picture. India is being seen as a strategic production rear area, a safe, scalable and cost-efficient industrial base far removed from active battlefields. Whether it is Indian-made 155mm artillery ammunition finding its way to Europe, or drones produced in India and shipped back to Israel, the message is clear: India provides strategic depth. It is no longer being seen merely as a market. The examples are telling. The Adani Elbit facility manufacturing Hermes drones, or Saab producing Carl Gustav systems in Haryana. These are not symbolic investments. They are insurance policies for nations at war. So my final take on this is, if India wants to sustain others' wars, it must shift from permission to reliability. Wartime supply chains need predictability, not case-by-case clearances. Pre-approved export corridors are essential. This strengthens sovereignty and not weakens it. Get this right, and India becomes an indispensable security supplier. The test is policy speed. That's all for this week on Defense Dynamics. Share your comments on social media with #DDWithDanvi. See you next week with new defense and geopolitical developments and their analysis. Until then, goodbye and take care.